Is it a 248 number or a 734?
The only thing I can see is the last 3 digits, 062.
I think that's
Well, it's a 989 area.
Yeah, it is a 989.
Okay, that's not him.
Okay.
Verizon rep.
Okay, we are live on YouTube.
Ray,
Yes, sir.
when I go down on the things I'm supposed to announce, it says public meeting attendees. Right now, will there be the presenter from Verizon will be the attendee?
All in any, Jim. Again,
Yeah.
we're going to be live on YouTube, and we won't see people watching us live on YouTube. So it's just a generalized welcome of the attendees.
Yeah, I got the welcome, but then it says public meeting attendees will be able to listen by the telephone and keep going with that, I guess.
Yeah. It's just a generalized. You don't have to call people out by name or anything else. It would just be a generalized welcome to any attendees that we may have watching or listening in.
Okay. Well, down the list, there's one about public meeting attendees will be able to listen by the phone, call in, and
Right, but we don't know who they are. Like, we have a caller in right now that we have no idea who it is.
Okay. All
But we
right.
don't know who it is to welcome them individually.
Okay, I'll keep going. I'll go through the list.
Okay. We are at the 9 o'clock hour on my clock, so if you want to go ahead and call it to order, we can go ahead.
We'll call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag
of the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome the attendees to the first electronic meeting of the Isabella County Zoning Board of Appeals. The meeting will be recorded and live streamed to YouTube, where the public will have the opportunity to view the meeting live and access it in the future. Now, there will be some procedural type things that I'd like to mention at this point. The recording secretary will perform roll call votes for every vote during the meeting. Public meeting attendees will be able to listen by telephone call-in and participate in public comments by following the directions in the public notice for this meeting. Zoning Board of Appeals members and staff will not be muted in the meetings and should be respectful and try not to speak over others. Attendees, be patient with the process and with each other. At this point, I'll ask for a motion and support for approval of the agenda as presented.
I'm Riley, will support that.
Motion by Tom
Yes,
and
I'll
support
support.
by
Brent.
Brent. Okay. So the name, okay, the first names have been stated then. I'm asking the secretary for a roll call vote.
Mr. Wines. Mr. Wines,
Yes.
Mr. Vogel,
Yes.
Mr. Riley,
yes,
and Mr. Duffett.
Yes.
Or yes, motion carries.
Okay, motion carried 4-0. Minutes from the March 4, 2020 special meeting. We need a motion and support. Members make sure to state their name first. Is there a motion to?
Phil Vogel, I'll approve.
Tom Riley, second.
And roll call vote.
Mr. Vogel,
Yes.
Mr. Riley,
Yes.
Mr. Duffett,
Yes.
Mr. Raines,
Yes.
4 yes, motion carries.
We will have a period of time, and this is the time right now for public comment on non-agenda items.
So Jim, why don't you go ahead and open the public meeting and then I'll make the announcement on how the callers would be able to speak if they wanted to.
Okay.
Just make an
We'll
announcement
open
that
the
we're,
meeting to I will open the meeting to public comment.
okay, this is Tim Newport, Community Development Director for Isabella County. Those that are wishing to participate in the meeting are currently muted. If you're interested in speaking, press *9 on your telephone keypad. That'll identify you by raising your hand. Our host, Ray Johnson, our planner, zoning administrator in the office, will let the host, will let the chairman know that if there are any callers with their hands raised for public comment at this time. You got anybody, Ray?
There are no hands raised at this point in time.
How many callers do you see?
We have one caller.
Okay, caller, are you interested in public comment at this time? If you are, please press *9.
There's no indication of a hand being raised.
Okay, Jim, none heard, so therefore you can go ahead and close the public comment period.
The meeting is closed to public comment. Number 6 item on our agenda is a variance request by Verizon Wireless, Gilmore Township. Tim?
Yeah, so we have a request, case number VAR 20-01. It's in Gilmore Township. We have, I believe, Amy Rodriguez from Verizon on the line, as well as Rob LaBelle. The owner of the property is Larry. We're in section 27 of Gilmore Township in the 7758 North Wynn Road area. The applicant is requesting a variance to allow a communication tower or antenna to be constructed 318 feet from a residence located on the property where 500 feet is required, and 2.5 miles from an existing communication tower or antenna where 3 miles is required by ordinance. The site area again is on North Wynn Road, just south of West Coleman Road. I believe we had east on your staff report, but that should be West Coleman Road. The zoning district is Ag 2 General Commercial. It's a split zoned parcel of land. Looks like, did we lose our chairman there, Ray? Before I go too far.
Video is off, Jim. Jim, do you have, can you turn your video on? We have audio for you.
Can you hear us, Jim?
Yes.
Okay, well, video, we can work on video. As long as you can hear us and participate, we're good. So I'm going to continue on.
I was doing something on another iPad. Okay, I was doing something on another iPad. Let's see if you're recently.
All right, we'll pause for a moment here while we get that back up then.
Okay. I don't know.
There we go.
Okay.
We're back.
Okay. So again, this request is, let me start back going through my notes here. So on February, in February of 2017, the appeals board held a public hearing and approved a variance request identical to the one that's before you today. According to the applicant, Verizon went through the process of the variance process. They also went through the process of the planning commission to obtain a special land use permit. They did not construct that tower at that time, and the special use permit without construction expired. Therefore, they need to go back through the process. Before the Zoning Board of Appeals, a new application is in front of you. The applicant has provided a narrative that addresses the criteria in section 1404C of the ordinance. They've provided a site plan. Ray, if you could put up on the screen the site plan, page 3 of the site plan. as well as they provided a deed of the property and several supplemental coverage propagation maps of the surrounding area. Property is a large tract of land just just east of Wynn Road, North Wynn Road, and south of West Coleman Road. Again, it's a split zoned piece of property. The zoning district out there has 430 feet of, 430 feet of frontage along North Wynn Road. And this tower is going to be sitting in that area, towards the back of it, pretty close to where the zoning district line is. But either way, both districts allow for, by special use permit, communication towers. So the fact that it's split zoned is sort of irrelevant to the matter. The criteria is the same and the setbacks are the same. You'll see in your staff report, we've provided you with the language from the ordinance for section 1404C. In summary, we received an application. It appears to be complete. We've posted all the signs on the property and posted the ad in the Morning Sun as required by state law and ordinance requirements. As of the date of the memorandum that we sent, and as of today as well, we have received no communications, written communications for or against the application. I would like to point out really quickly, before I turn this back over to the chair to turn over to the applicant, that the site plan is page 3 of the site plan that was received. You can see the access road coming in off of North Wynn Road, back to the pad area where the tower will sit. You can see also to the south of that, the manufactured home that sits on the property. I believe that manufactured home is used for recreational purposes. I don't think it's a permanent residence for anybody currently. And that is the home that's within the 500-foot setback that our ordinance requires. And it is the same property owner. It's on the same piece of property. There are 2 other homes. Ray, if you pull up the, oh yes, that one, that map that we prepared. This map was prepared and sent to you guys showing approximate location of the tower and the 318 feet to the manufactured home that sits on the property. You can see that there's a home or residence directly across the street. That home is over 500 feet, meets our ordinance requirement, so is not under consideration with regard to the variance. And then there is a new home on the property to the south. I believe this applicant or this individual property owner spoke out at the hearing in 2017 in a fashion to just kind of get an understanding of what was going on. They had, I looked back at the minutes, they didn't have any opposition to it, but they also are, their new home that exists, but you don't see on the aerial photography, is outside of that 500-foot area as well. So the home that we're talking about, that's 318 feet, that's within the 500-foot setback area, is a home on the existing piece of property. We'll jump really quick to the other map that you prepared for them, Ray. This is the map that shows the nearest location of an existing tower. This one is approximately 2.5 miles away. It's on the southwest side of Littlefield Lake. And this is just again for, so you can see this, this distance. I believe there were some propagation maps that were included in your site plan as well, that you guys can, that you've had in your packets and you've taken a look at. So if anybody has any questions for staff, I'd be more than happy to answer them at this time. Otherwise, I'll turn it back over to the chair to open it up to the applicant.
Okay, thank you, Tim.
You're welcome.
Would the applicant care to address the board?
Looks like Mr. LaBelle's got a hand raised.
Okay, can everyone hear me now?
All right, please
Yes.
state your name.
My name is Rob LaBelle. I'm an attorney who represents Verizon Wireless in connection with this site. I was the same attorney who represented us back in 2017 as well. Amy Rodriguez is also with me, with whom I think your zoning administrators and other staff members have had contact regarding this site. She is the site acquisition specialist for Verizon Wireless and primarily responsible with regard to the location of this site and trying to provide a tower that will meet the service propagation needs. Again, as it was mentioned, this was already proposed once and approved for a variance back in 2017. And we also received the special land use and site plan approvals at the same time or later, just after getting the ZBA approval. In the meantime, we have been working through a variety of issues with regard to the site, both access and some environmental issues, and getting all of those things resolved. We have gotten them resolved at this point, and now are ready to push forward again with the site. That during the time period we were doing these types of due diligence investigations, I mentioned at the time that we were doing the site special land use approval, that there are 24 different agencies that must give approval, federal and state agencies that must give approval for each tower that we build. You folks are one of those 24, but we have to get approvals from them all, and some of those things take a little longer, and that's what happened in this circumstance. So coming back in this case, we're looking again for the same variance approval we got the first time. You've got our variance application. You've seen the notes probably from the original approval in 2017. The basic concept is this. The putting together of a tower requires a great deal of investigation as to fitting it together with the other service needs of other towers. So basically, and as I explained the first time in 2017, a cell tower, a cell phone tower creates a cell around it. It's the reason why it's called cellular telephone. That cell is roughly circular. Each tower will create a cell which is supposed to bump up nicely against the cell service coverage areas of other towers, other existing towers. Each one wants to connect with each other like a honeycomb. If you have overlap between two service areas, that area of overlap is an area of destructive interference, and the signal will actually degrade within the area of overlap. If you get them too far and you leave a small gap between two service areas, that gap is now permanent, because you can't place a tower inside that gap without creating a massive zone of destructive interference. So that results in that being a relatively small area, which we call a search ring, where you can place a tower, which will cause it to match up with the other towers. Adding on to this issue is one that we are experiencing more and more, and it's going to be increasingly new problem, which is a capacity problem. Existing towers can only handle so many signals per second. And after a certain period of time, if they receive more than that, they'll essentially wink out. Think of it like a circuit breaker. So as a result, these individual existing towers, when they reach their capacity, they're no longer functioning in that second. And that's why you drop calls, even in the presence of a tower that has a coverage zone that can handle it. But we also have to place this tower so that not only is it dealing with the service gap that we have, it also has to be able to offload capacity issues of other towers. So it has to be close enough to these towers to be able to offload their capacity issues, but not so close that it causes destructive interference. This further limits where we can place a tower. Your ordinance requires there to be a 3-mile separation. For the purposes of engineering a gapless and non-overlapping zones, we need to be approximately 2.55 miles away. And you see that from the propagation maps that you have in your package, which show that once you place this tower in there, it fits into those gaps. That creates the practical difficulty that we have. We are both trying to deal with two aspects of your ordinance at the same time. One is the general concept of limiting the number of towers. So in this circumstance, we're trying to get a single tower to be able to deal with both the capacity and coverage issues, but at the same time, try to comply with your tower separation requirements. Given the circumstances, it made more sense to try to place a tower where it would locate it, where they would effectively close the service gap, but not create the need for additional towers to be able to deal with gaps if we went to the location instead. So, or if we moved ourselves out another half a mile. If we moved ourselves out another half a mile, for example, as you can tell, that would leave the gap between about a half-mile gap. That would be impossible to cover. And as a result, we've sought to do it as a 2.55 mile instead, trying to get as close as we can, but staying as far away as we can for that purpose. The property itself is also uniquely operated or uniquely situated to be able to provide that service or cover that service gap and the capacity issues, but at the same time be sheltered. There's wooded areas that you can see from there all around the area, as well as sheltering it from other locations. The other area that we're looking for a variance is one which we actually, and we said this the first time through, we actually didn't think we needed a variance from this because we don't believe that your ordinance is actually trying to get to homes on the applicant's own property in terms of that 300-foot separation. Because obviously if the applicant was concerned about there being a tower within 300 feet of its property, it just would enter into a lease with us and they wouldn't have to worry about the problem. So I think it was trying to get to 300 feet from, in terms of the way it's referenced, the boundary of other properties, not the boundary of this particular property, because it is the applicant's own property. But even if, in fact, we do need the variance, there's basically the same reasons for doing it. Locating it where we have on the property is both the landowner's desire for where we would be, and also allows us to push it back as far as possible while still maintaining close enough distance to be able to reach necessary services, electrical, fiber, to be able to connect this property up, this cell site up with other sites. So basically that's our presentation and our need for this particular tower and why we want it in this circumstance. Again, we had a period of time where we had to deal with other issues and which we have now dealt with. And now we're back after the expiration of our original approvals, basically to just, reinstate them.
Thank you. Do any of the members of the ZBA have a question at this point?
I have one question, Phil Vogel. Will they need a mailing address or a parcel number for this?
Yes, they will have to, and I believe they may have already obtained one at the first go around, an address for the tower location itself.
It will not, however, be a separate parcel. It'll have a separate mailing address because that's necessary for electrical service to be provided to the tower.
Okay.
But it won't be a separate parcel with a separate tax ID number.
It'll be a location address. The mailing address will be wherever the tax bills and that stuff ends up going to, which could be the owner or his home of residence or wherever. But it'll be a location address for purposes of Verizon's utilization as well as our E911.
Any other questions for the applicant? If there aren't any, well, we'll open the meeting to public comment if there is some interest.
So again, this is the time for public comment on variance number 20-01 Verizon Wireless. If there's any listeners out there that would wish to participate in the public comment period, please press star 9 on your telephone keypad at this time. That will raise your hand and let Ray Johnson, the host, and our planning and zoning administrator know that you're wanting public comment. Still only one listener, Ray, on?
Yeah, still only one listener. I don't see a hand raised at this point.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call one more time for public comment at this point due to the lag potential. Does any caller or the caller that is listening in at this current time have any public comment? If you do so, press star 9 on your dial pad. It appears, Mr. Chairman, that there has been no hands raised. Therefore, you can go ahead and close the public comment.
Thank you, Tim. The meeting is now closed to public comment. ZBA members, discussion regarding the request by this Verizon Wireless Company. Any discussion?
I have no discussion.
No.
No.
If there aren't any questions of the applicant or discussion, we would entertain a motion on the variance request.
Based on review of 1404C, I think there is some extraordinary circumstances with trying to line up these antennas. I can see what they're trying to accomplish to provide a good service. Obviously, we all are well aware of the need for cell services in the areas. I don't think it's detrimental to any of the neighbors. The trailer in question is owned by the property owner. It's not an adjoining neighbor. I see no reason not to approve the variance.
Vogel would second.
We have a motion by Brent and a second by Phil. Roll call vote.
Ray, she's muted.
Mr. Riley,
Yes.
Mr. Duffett,
Yes.
Mr. Wines,
Yes.
Mr. Vogel.
Yes.
4 yes, motion carries.
Okay, the motion passed as a result of the roll call vote. Anything else before we get to staff comments?
That's it at this time. Ray, if you'd go ahead and mute back out the applicants, please.
Applicants are muted.
That's it, Jim. We're ready to move on.
Staff comments, any at this time?
Staff has no additional comments at today's meeting, other than, thank you guys. Thank everybody. I know this is your first go around at it. I've done quite a few. I still got 3 more Zoom meetings yet today. These aren't the easiest, funnest way of doing business, but we do business this way now. Don't know how long this is going to carry on. I know there's an executive order here in Michigan that it ends on the 30th. I think I stated this to the Planning Commission as well. Unfortunately, our deadline for advertising is prior to that executive order. Our attorneys are likely going to advise us to hold 1 more meeting beyond the executive order expiration, as for the purpose of our planning and our requirements under state law to do our advertising needs to happen before the executive order takes place. So, as long as the executive order expires on the 30th as is, we'll likely hold 1 more meeting this way. And then we'll be back moving forward in a normal fashion. However, who knows what's going to happen and how this thing's going to shake out. It may end up that there's some legislative changes that this is the way we operate moving forward for another short period of time, or maybe for a longer period of time. But thanks to all the Planning Commission or Zoning Board of Appeals members for your participation and understanding. And this is how we just do business now. That's it for staff comment.
Any board comments?
None for me.
Oh, for a first meeting, I think it went very well.
Indeed.
Okay.
Good job, Ray, Kim.
If there aren't any more comments from the board, then we have a motion and support for an adjournment.
I move to adjourn. Tom
Second.
Riley.
Phil Vogel.
Roll call vote.
Mr. Duffett,
Yes.
Mr. Wines,
Yes.
Mr. Vogel,
Yes.
Mr. Riley.
Yes.
4
Meeting is adjourned.
yes.
Thank you, Amy and Rob. Thank you, guys. Ray will be in touch with you, Amy, to kind of get you moving forward towards your special use and site plan. Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you.
We're all set.
Yep. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you for everybody. Thanks everybody for being real alert on this, giving your name and doing it the right way. We don't want to wind up in the Supreme Court someplace.
That's correct. Thank you, Ray. You can kill the YouTube.